Hi everyone, and welcome to my show. Now, I was supposed to hold a every Thursday South Australian time. I'm doing a video about 2:30, 3 o'clock, and I was supposed to do it with Avery, but Avery's unwell, and we're going to do one next week, early next week, hopefully. So I hope Avery gets well real soon. But there's some interesting stuff to talk about in relation to American politics. I'm going to do a post later on that's more Australian focused. But at the moment, I was interested in what was happening in the US because, as my title above says, it's a bit of a clown show in the US right now in relation to who Trump is appointing as members of his cabinet. And it is particularly interesting as of today that he decided to appoint Matt Gaetz. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Just wanted to cover some of the other appointments that he's made and why he's making these appointments. I think it's important to understand that Trump in particular believed that it was important to be able to stir things up as best as he could. And I guess he's tended to do that, and all power to him for doing so. But in doing so, he also has, I guess, highlighted some of the areas that are really important to him and were important to the people that elected him, even though I am convinced they didn't understand the implications of electing a character like Trump, the narcissistic criminal that he is. All they wanted was something that would bring about the change that they felt they needed in his life. And I've watched lots of criticism in their lives. I've watched lots of criticisms of the Democrats and the way that they conducted the campaign. I just think, forget about all of that shit. What is important right at the moment is the fact that there's going to be a lot of people in the United States who are going to be harmed by some of the behaviours that we will see from Donald Trump and his administration. And I think there are some powerful indicators that that is exactly what's happening. And so settle back. Don't relax. Focus on what is happening and challenge it all along the way, because there are some valuable lessons for all of us to learn here in Australia and around the world about what's happening in the US. And I think there'll be lots of people who will probably think twice now about electing extreme right-wing political parties into power because of what will be happening in the US and the implications to those people in the United States. So let's have a look at some of the people that have been nominated. And look, let me know what you think about all of this stuff. Whether you think that Trump is going down a path that the United States will regret, or is he going down a path which is just implementing the policies and the ideas that he initially had? Because one of the issues for me is that, in fact, he articulated a lot of what he was going to do, but a lot of people thought, well, it's just hyperbole, that he didn't actually mean it, that it was just off-the-cuff statements he'd make about immigrants and about solving all of the problems in relation to crime in the US, and that he would be the saviour of all women, all that sort of crap, the stuff that he cannot do, would not do, isn't even on his agenda. But he says that stuff because he believes it appeals to his base. And he's not wrong. It does, but it is damaging. So, do you believe, anybody who's watching this, and I must comment that I've lost a lot of subscribers in the last week. So if you're new to my channel and you don't object too much to some of the things that I say, that you might like to subscribe to my channel as well. I'd really appreciate that. But I guess the point is that he's appointing people that are going to follow through on the extreme policies that will be, and that are, if you like, the Trump administration. And now there's a couple of examples of this, and this was in Media Matters. It's funny, I was looking at Media Matters and I saw this Matt Gaetz, and I thought, God, it was written by Matt Gaetz. and my dyslexic kicked in. And I thought, no, that can't be right. And I had to take another look. No, it's by this other bloke, Matt Gertz. So incoming President Donald Trump's unprecedented relationship with Fox News is once again creating a revolving door between the right-wing propaganda network and his administration. Trump has named 3 current or former Fox employees to high-ranking positions in the week since he was elected president, and more seem sure to follow. And we're about to talk about one of those in the moment, which would be Pete Hegseth. And the interesting thing too about this was that that Speaker Johnson was concerned that he was taken, because these people would have to be reappointed. So people leave the Congress and they either, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, there has to be elections again for those positions once they leave. And because the majority is only 3 or 4 at the moment, every time somebody leaves, it puts at risk the fact that those seats may not be able to be regained. So what does that mean for Congress? Well, Trump could be putting Congress at risk in terms of having a majority, particularly in the House of Representatives. So, and he's appointed a few people in this position, and Pete has... so I'm just going to talk about some of those, and we'll see where we go from there. I mean, Trump is an obsessive Fox News viewer whose worldview is shaped by the network's programming, stocked in his first term, White House and federal agencies with familiar faces from the network. At least 20 people with Fox in their resumes joined his administration over the course of his tenure, including cabinet secretaries, top White House aides and ambassadors. Now, some of the people that he has appointed to this point are people like Tulsi Gabbard, who's Director of National Intelligence, which is really incredible because here's a woman who I think her history was that she was a Democrat, was disenchanted with the Democrats because they didn't give her enough attention. So she then decided to go to the other side, the dark side, which is the Republican Party. And she has had this terrific political transformation. So it's been a come-to-Jesus moment for her, and she's decided that everything that she needed and everything that fitted with her values rests with the Republican Party. And as a result, she has been offered the top position of Director of National Intelligence, which is the organisation that overlooks all the intelligence agencies, the CIA and all the others, about 8 of them, and all the others that sit below that. So that's who Tulsi Gabbard is. So she's not, she's become a convert, and as a result of the many things that she said about Trump, the glowing statement she's made about him being the saviour, has meant that she's able to take up a position which is saving the United States from the surveillance which occurs because of their national security and their hypervigilance in the world of security. Now, the other one that was interesting was Pete Hegseth, who's the Secretary of Defence. Now, incidentally, in relation to these 2 people, none of them have experience in any of these areas. So, if I was in the United States, I could have been chosen for any of these jobs because I don't have any experience in any of these areas either, but neither do they. But nevertheless, they have these jobs. Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defence, after serving in the Army National Guard and as Executive Director of a right-wing veterans organisation. Okay, Hegseth joined Fox as a contributor in 2014 and became co-host of Fox and Friends Weekend Edition. So it wasn't even the main show during the week, it was the weekend edition. And there's lots of videos of Pete Hegseth talking about how the veterans and how he in particular would suggest that there shouldn't be, particularly, well, he did suggest that women should be involved in the forces, and that'll go down well with a lot of women who are already involved in the forces, and particularly a lot of women who are airport pilots. What's going to happen to them? They're part of the forces as well. But apparently, according to Pete, they shouldn't be there because they just don't have the temperament, and they cause problems, because a lot of these men just can't control themselves around these apparently attractive women who are also fighting for their country or whatever the case might be. In that role, he caught Trump's eye with the then president reportedly considering for a Secretary of Veterans Affairs and taking the Fox host advice in granting executive clemency to several service members accused and convicted of war crimes. Right. Because Americans wouldn't commit war crimes. That's above and beyond them. They're far more ethical than just that. And then there's Tom Homan, who's the border czar. Now, Homan does have a history around this because he was there before, advising around this. Homan joined Fox as a contributor. It's another Fox contributor. In August 2018, 2 months after his retirement as acting director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, where he reportedly served as the intellectual father of Trump's family separate policy. Now, we may remember that again with Stephen Miller, where they separated children from the families because they believed that that would encourage people not to come to America if they knew going to be separated from their kids. Didn't work. It was inhumane. They popped kids in cages, didn't provide them with appropriate food or comfort or anything for that matter, including proper clothing. So as a result of that, they got a lot of pushback and it didn't really seem to go anywhere. As a Fox employee, he staunchly supported Trump's immigration policies and statements and called for draconian response to the purported migrant invasion. Trump announced on November the 10th, 2024, that he is naming Homan border czar and giving him responsibility for the mass deportation of undocumented immigrants. And Homan has decided that all people that are undocumented are going to be sent out of the country. He hasn't explained how he's going to do that, but he has told everybody that this is what he plans to do. He's a real right royal piece of shit, to be honest. But nevertheless, he has been appointed. Now, another one out of the... and I don't think Mike Huckabee has necessarily been all that evident on Fox. He has his own podcast, I think, but clearly he's been on Fox as well. And he's the ambassador to Israel. Now Mike Huckabee is a right royal piece of human excrement as well, because he believes that that what's happening in the West Bank and what's happening in Gaza are just issues around settlements, and that Israelis should be given all of that area, and they should annex, I should say, all of those areas and just take them over. Be done with it. Kick out the Palestinians and not give them any rights or whatever, which currently happens in the West Bank. No criticism whatsoever of what's happened in Gaza, none what's happened in the West Bank, none about the apartheid that is Israel, and is very supportive of that. So he becomes the ambassador to Israel, supporting all these draconian and apartheid-type policies that are part of Israel government. So what does that mean? Well, it means that in turn the Trump administration will continue to provide guns and will continue to provide ammunition and so forth for the IDF, so they'll be able to eradicate the country of Palestinians and just create more of the genocide. So that's Mike Huckabee. Now we know, I guess, from his appointment, we kind of know what is likely to happen in terms of Israel and the genocide in Gaza. Now, there is another article here where they're talking about. We'll have a look at this nevertheless. And so this is where Pete Hegseth again. The Pentagon has been stunned. So this is the response. So the response to Pete Hegseth, and people still don't know how to say his name, has stunned Donald Trump's picks for Defense Secretary, a National Guard veteran, Fox News presenter, blah, blah, blah. He's questioned whether the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Charles Brown, was given the top job because he is black. So this is what Hegseth has done, and accused him of pursuing the radical position of left-wing politicians. How dare he? And Hegseth's aim, his objective, is is to get rid of all those woke people that sit within the Pentagon. So this is his goal, and he no doubt will fulfill that goal on the behest of our friend Mr. Trump. He was a major in the Minnesota National Guard. He's argued for faster provisions of more weapons to Ukraine for its defence against Russia, but also called US NATO membership into question. His nomination is also a boost for the far right in Israel, as he has shown support for territorial expansion, suggested that Jews could build a new temple on the sacred compound around Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, known to the Jews as the Temple Mount. He told an audience in Jerusalem in 2018, "There's no reason why the miracle of the establishment of the temple on the Temple Mount is not possible." The Israel settlement movement also celebrating Trump's nomination, as I was just discussing earlier, for the reasons that I have mentioned. And then we move to Matt Gaetz. Now, this one is probably the most this is the most damaging of all the nominations in a sense, because this is about law and order. This is about Attorney General. Now, Matt Gaetz has been under investigation, or was, they've since dropped the case, for transporting a 17-year-old across the border for sex. So child trafficking, in other words. And that case has been dropped probably because the person concerned chose not to go ahead with her side of the investigation. Probably decided not to be a witness, whatever. So that's probably the reason why that's been dropped. But he's a clown. He's the ultimate clown, this dude. Yet somehow he's the one that's going to lead the fight for law and order in the United States. Had a case dropped against him. The Ethics Committee were investigating him for unethical behaviour, which was part of this situation around this, and also showing pornography in Congress. You know, he's just an absolute revolting human being. And the Congress or Ethics Committee were about to release a report in relation to Gaetz, but they've decided, but they can't now, not decided not to, they were going to, but they can't now because he's resigned from Congress since this nomination. So the nomination, in a sense, saved him from what probably was going to be a damning report into his behaviour in Congress, and possibly some sanctions against him. Who knows what they're going to do around that. But nevertheless, the issue is this man is the clown of all clowns. And he is the one that is going to look after law and order. So one wonders what law... And he has a law degree, but never practiced law, been involved in politics for a few years now. He's relatively young, he's only 42 or 41 or something. So Donald Trump has announced his intention to nominate Matt Gaetz as a hard-right congressman from Florida, known for inflaming tensions within the House Republicans Conference as Attorney General. Gaetz, a long-time Trump loyalist, gained attention last year after leading a successful charge to oust his fellow Republican Kevin McCarthy hates him for obvious reasons. And Gaetz and 7 other House Republicans joined Democrats in voting to remove McCarthy last year, kicking him out for weeks. So that's kind of like part of the history, hated within. So whether he gets the confirmation or not is another issue. And in February 2023, the Justice Department declined to bring charges of sex trafficking against Gaetz, who was denied wrongdoing since the allegations first came to light. Okay. So the other issue that sits around all of this, if you're still following me, good on you. But the other issue that comes about because of all of this is the fact that they may call or put the Senate in recess so they don't have to go through confirmations, which would mean that Trump could simply appoint whoever he likes. There would not be a confirmation process whatsoever, so that would mean then that that we will not know, we will not have a chance to question these people, to ask them about anything that anything they've done, to ask their views on any of the policies, to ask what policies they would implement or what's important to them. Any character checks on them will not be able to be done, or to at least be made public. And some wonders whether some of these people would even pass an FBI or a CIA check. One wonders whether they would even make the grade there. So let me know. I'm fascinated by this clown show because, as I said earlier, it's going to teach us some lessons about right-wing governments, how they govern, who they put in power, and the influence that they will have on all of those people that voted for them, and the response that they're going to get from those people over time, and the kickback, the rejection that they're likely to receive as they start to implement all of these extreme right-wing policies, and particularly Project 2025. So watch this space, and also remember to subscribe to my channel, ring the bell for further notifications. There's some really good stuff on the way, and I hope that you can have an opportunity to be with me when we talk about all of those issues. In the meantime, take care, look after yourselves, and more importantly, be safe. Thanks for being with me.